Photography doesn't teach you to express your emotions. It teaches you to see.
I can teach technique, but I can't teach vision.
Hey, welcome to the Street Shots Photography Podcast. This is Antonio.
And this is Ward.
And this is episode 190 for the end of August 2023. And we're 10 episodes away, 11 episodes actually, if we count this one, from the 200th episode.
200.
That's
a long time.
I have 200 of anything that I've done, except maybe like 200 photo books or 200 cats.
200 frames on a Friday.
200 frames. Yeah. 200. But that will be, I don't know when, August. What do we got? September, October, November, December. So it's 2, 4, 6, 8. So it looks like January.
January will be 200. We'll have a little New Year / bicentennial.
Right. We'll have our champagne here and stuff like that. And I'll get a little badge from Podbean. Podbean gives you badges. Yeah, Podbean gives you badges when you make certain anniversaries or certain milestones in your podcast. So
nice.
You can put a little badge. I don't know if I put a badge on our site. I can't remember. I don't know. Who cares?
Cool.
But yeah, 200. Wow. That's a lot. And then next year will be our 10th year doing the podcast. Started with Tom.
Right.
I think in 2014. Yeah, 2014 we started. So yeah.
So that would be 10 years. Yeah. Which would make sense every, twice a month for 10 years.
For the most part. Yeah. So anyway, but we're at 190 and we're in the middle of August and it's great to be here with you today.
Good.
It just seems like so long ago that we've sat down and done this. So
I know.
In some way we were talking when we were offline that time is going by fast in some ways, and then in some other ways it's going slow. I think for us getting together and seeing each other in person, it's been slow. But that's my experience. I don't know what your experience is. You're a busy boy.
Just been working the day job. Very busy.
Yeah.
Nice to unplug.
Yeah.
My phones are turned off. Which is
I should turn mine
I might fall asleep on you actually just because the phones are turned off. No, my head starts to go out of the frame.
Oh, that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign. That's what happens with my students sometimes. I see them dozing off. I was like, oh man, I'm just talking too much.
You need some fancy music to play in the background.
Yeah, I need to like drop a pan on the floor. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I wake
you?
Yeah. So anyway, how are things going on your side of the world?
Pretty good. We've had some really nice warm weather, mid 80s. I think today was like 86 Fahrenheit. So that was nice. I don't mind. I mean, some people have trouble sleeping when it's that warm, but I never do. Once I'm asleep, I don't care what the temperature is. So that's the way I look at it. I think it's healthy. If you want sleep, then sleep. Don't complain about the temperature.
I've noticed that I haven't had the air conditioner on as many times as I did last year. So it's been a little bit, even though we had some nasty hot, it's been actually quite nice these past maybe week and a half or two. So it was kind of mild and stuff. So yeah, been enjoying not being in air conditioning. I don't mind air conditioning, but the bills start to,
start to add up.
$300 just to stay cool.
Yeah.
So none of that.
No, and also this past weekend, my wife and I did our annual salsa vintage.
Have we ever talked about your annual salsa?
I don't know that we have or not. Maybe years ago we did.
We need a picture of the salsa to show everybody. Right?
Yeah. So
you have something to share? Like the jars?
Like jars, yeah. Send them to you in foam boxes.
Oh, yeah. I wish you could. I really, I see the pictures of it and it makes me like...
Every year is a little bit different. This year it's got a hot kind of raw green chili. I thought it was jalapeno, but I think it's a green chili.
Oh.
Like burn when you're right at the end when you're eating it. So and it quenches real quick. So you have a beer or even a glass of water, it doesn't, burn your mouth completely, but it's a little warmer than our typical vintages. But and
you like it spicy?
I always love it. Yeah, I like it spicy.
Yeah,
it's sweeter this year too. The combination
see,
of tomatoes and
again. This is not good.
So behind me, I'm in the basement of our suburban home. Behind me is a storage shelf with we have one jar left of the 2021. We probably have a dozen left of 2022, and then we have 65 or 68 of the 2023. And we give them out, or we come to a party or whatever. It's like, well, what are we going to give them? Like wine? No, we give them the salsa. We got plenty of it. Everybody loves it. So,
does it keep for a year or two?
Oh, obviously, it's canned. It's processed, so
okay.
We can it, and we have a whole assembly line going. We buy the tomatoes from the market garden. We bring it in. I spend 3 or 4 hours or 5 hours, depending on how long it takes and how hard it is to get the skin off the tomatoes. Core, score, blanch, and then the skin falls off the tomato, and you put them in, and my wife cuts them up and does the pepper mix and mix it all together, and then we heat it up and stir for an hour, and then we can them.
Sounds like this is like time-lapse kind of material.
Yeah.
You set up a GoPro and do a time-lapse of you guys making this and running around. Back and forth.
Back and forth. We'll cut out the little marital disagreement.
Yeah,
what do you think? Okay. Go put that in that compost. No, I'm stirring this.
Did you ever photograph? I mean, other than photographing your jars, did you ever? I mean, you're part of the process, so it would be hard for you to actually.
Yeah, my hands are get all pruny because I'm dealing with wet product and hot water.
You should have Mark come by and photograph you guys while you're making it, and so make it into some little documentary kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll apply them with a couple of jars of salsa. That'd be good.
Yeah, well, if I was there, that was all I would need. So.
As much as you can carry onto the plane on the way home, right?
Yeah, well, all right. That sounds cool. I don't have any kind of farm growing. I do have a errant tomato plant on my terrace. We don't. No, I don't know where it came from, and it's got 7 cherry tomatoes on it, and I'm sure when they're ripe, I'll make. I got to make something out of it. I can't just stick it into a salad. That would be such a waste.
Pico or something out of it.
Yeah, something that has to, that's special. But I don't know where this plant came from. It somehow landed in my planter, and then
cool.
And now I have this tomato plant. So, and actually, speaking of that, I don't know. I know we're going on about nothing so far, but so what? You guys haven't had those red lantern flies yet, have you? In your neck of the woods?
We don't.
But you've heard about them?
Yeah, I heard about them, but I think it's more of an East Coast thing.
Well, hopefully it doesn't, go further than this because they're all over the place. They've made it up to my terrace. I live on the 12th floor, and these little buggers are flying around. And at first, I don't. Everybody's saying you got to kill them. They're actually kind of beautiful looking. When they're flying, they look kind of dumb, but when they land and their wings are open, they have these red spots and stuff like that. And
nice.
When I was filming at the concerts in Prospect Park, they're all over the place and they're landing on me, which is not very fun to have. I'm not a bug person, so. But they're not bad. They're not like creepy. They just all of a sudden you feel something in the back of your neck, and I pull off, and there's this giant. And they're big.
Okay.
But anyway, we're supposed to step on them, and I just feel bad about stepping on them. Like I have nothing against them, but we're supposed to because they're going to be damaging pests. But they landed on my terrace, and guess what? This is my terrace, and so I had enough of that, and so smack. But they're kind of everywhere, and so hopefully you're supposed to check your luggage before you go someplace because that's how they've gotten over here. They hop in, and they're working their way west. I think is what the problem is. They started off, I think, in Pennsylvania or Boston, I don't know, somewhere on the East Coast they came in, and now they're migrating west. Anyway, thought I would mention that. So
crazy. From tomatoes to red lantern flies.
I was in Greenwood Cemetery this Sunday, and wanted to get back into doing some bird photography. Just haven't done it in a long time, and so I was out there, and it wasn't so bad. They've got these sort of traps to catch them, but I did see a bird this is funny because I'm looking through my 600 millimeter lens and I see a bird and it's got something in its mouth and it's one of these lanternflies. And what was one of the issues that I heard was that they didn't have any natural predators. Like birds weren't eating them because they're not poisonous apparently, but their look, their look scares the birds off because they look like they're poisonous. So I don't know what kind of bird it was, and I looked at the pictures and it was slightly out of focus. But the bird had a lantern bug in its lanternfly in its mouth, and I thought, hey, maybe that's the beginning of something. Maybe we'll start seeing birds start to eat these things because they don't know what they're missing because they're all over the place. These things are, so they look like they're very tasty. So yeah, I was out shooting with the. I have to take my lens in, I think, to get repaired. I got this 150 to 600.
Yeah.
The this optical stabilization seems to be a little wonky. Like when I'm shooting with it, all of a sudden it starts to wibble wobble on its own. So anytime I'm trying to take a picture, it's going like this. It's going up and down, up and down, up and down, and it goes. And I can't keep the shot steady. And so I'm like, I think I got to take this thing in, which is a real pain because then I have to go in the city and stuff like that. But it doesn't start off that way. Like I start shooting and it's fine. And then eventually, it starts going. Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, that's what I was doing this weekend. I was looking at lantern bugs with my big lens and actually trying to practice and capture birds again. So I just bought a book on bird photography, like how to be a bird photographer. Yeah, I figured someone's going to have some tips. I really have to work on it. I can't get a shot of a bird. I can get them when they're landed, but when they're flying, forget it. It's like. And the Fuji camera, sorry, it isn't, if I'm going on about this, but,
that's right.
They upgraded these algorithms in the XH2. That's the whole big deal. They've got these, pattern recognitions for finding birds and planes, stuff like that. And this bloody thing, it can't focus on things. Like I'm trying to focus. I'm like, there's the bird. And I'm pointing a little square at it, and I'm trying to take a picture of it, and the thing is out of focus. And I'm like, the bird is right there. Can't you recognize? And then I have to move the camera to try to find some other place that's within the same range of the bird for it to lock on, and then I swing back to the bird. This doesn't happen all the time, but this is a very frustrating
autofocus,
thing.
Pre-focus.
I think the cameras are going to need some more firmware updates to kind of really lock onto that pattern focus. So, but anyway, I don't know, no big deal. So a couple of things, and we don't, we're just chatty here about photography. So nothing quite off the bat, but I did want to mention a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to be doing, this is for anybody who's in my neck of the woods, who's in the tri-state area, who wants to come to Brooklyn on October 7th. If you've not heard about the Scott Kelby Worldwide Photo Walk, it's back on. I don't know if it was on last year, but it's been a few years since the pandemic, and so they stopped doing it. But do you know anything about the Worldwide Photo Walk?
Yeah, I hear about it. Yeah.
If anybody knows about it, you can go to look for the Scott Kelby Worldwide Photo Walk. It's basically everybody in the world who wants a photo walk on this one day, and the proceeds, I don't know where the money's coming from, but proceeds go to I think this is a school in Kenya or some educational thing in Kenya, so it's all for a good cause. And essentially it's just everybody in the world on the same day doing a photo walk. I think maybe the same day. I think it's the same day. It is the same day, October 7th. They usually used to have 2 days in case they had to have a rain date, but this is Saturday, October 7th. Anyway, I did it a bunch of times. I was doing it sort of on a regular basis, and did the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, Red Hook. I didn't do Coney Island because there was always someone else doing Coney Island. I did Greenwood Cemetery, and they almost had Greenwood had a cow when I got there, because we met in front of the gate. And then we all walked in with our cameras, and the guard was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I was like, He's like, "We're just doing a photo walk." He's like, "Oh, you can't do that." I'm like, "Why?" It was just a bunch of us with cameras, And he's like, "Oh, wait a minute." And then someone else come out and you're like, "You're not doing this for money." I'm like, "No, I'm not doing this for money. This is just me leading this photo walk." And I had to explain to them because they didn't want people coming in making money like on a tour.
Right.
or something like that, which is understandable because they have their own tours there. But so I got I've been running this. I've been leading it for a while. We did one in Red Hook the week before Superstorm Sandy hit. That wasn't the last one because that was in 2012. But anyway, I've been doing it for a while. So I get the email saying, "Do you want to lead a walk?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll lead a walk." So I decided to do it in Red Hook again, because I haven't done Red Hook in a while. It's also very photogenic. When you were here, we didn't go to Red Hook, but it's changing. It's one of those areas that's also, getting redeveloped. And actually, Superstorm Sandy helped that happen because a lot of places got damaged, and then money came in and they're rebuilding, but they're rebuilding the modern stuff. And so it's beginning to lose a little bit of its edge in terms of, it still has that oldie edge, harbor-y, kind of out of the way Brooklyn part. So, I figured it was worth a shot. So anyway, I'll put the link in the show notes, but if anybody wants to join me, I have it set from 10 to 2. I don't think we'll go that long, but I like to have the extra, hour in case people want to hang out and basically walk around Red Hook, take pictures, and then grab food someplace, usually at the food court that's at the place that we're going to meet at. But, we can go someplace else if not. So anyway, I wish you were around for that. It's kind of a nice walk around that area. It's a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool industrial stuff. So anyway, that's happening. I'm also doing another photo walk, not on September 10th, in the area around where Brick is. They're doing a hip hop festival because it's the 50th anniversary of hip hop, but it's also an anniversary of Brick. And so they're doing they're having a street party in front of the building, and then there's going to be 2 photo walks I'm going to do different times in the hour and just walk around the neighborhood. So I'll see if there's a link for that, but we can have people, but that's, a couple of photo walks. I like doing photo walks. These are kind of fun.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah.
I went on the biggest photo walk I've ever in my life. It was 50 people.
Whoa.
Was
there someone leading it, or was it just a bunch of people?
Yeah, it was a nature outdoor photographer, Dave Brosha. He did this photo walk the week before I did my talk at the camera store on making photo books. Anyway, so there were 50 of us, and thankfully we all split up into manageable groups, and we had to pick a theme. He asked us to pick, one theme. Didn't matter what it was. Mine was taking pictures of people on a photo walk that has 50 people. So my subject was the people.
The people in the walk, or just people?
The people in the walk, yeah.
People in the walk.
Dealing with their cameras, various skill levels and interest and all that kind of stuff. So, no, I had fun. That's a good idea. I mean, not for the Red Hook photo walk. I don't tell people to come up with a theme because there's a contest in there. If they, I get to pick the winner. Mm-hmm. But I think for the other photo walk, coming up with telling the people having a theme for the hip hop photo walk would be kind of just something so that you could concentrate instead of going, oh, what about this?
Wander around. That's a good idea. Yeah. All right.
So, cool. Yeah. And they're on my Instagram stream. If you look at the last few pictures on my Instagram stream or that.
Oh, really?
That photo walk. Yeah.
All right. Cool. So we'll do that. All right. So that's my bit of news. One other thing I wanted to kick in. This is technical, but what the heck? People have been posting up stories about using the Photoshop. Photoshop has got this new generative fill thing that everybody's going insane about. It's sort of like it's the built-in AI fill that's in. It was in Photoshop beta. I think it's now in the release version. So basically, you can use AI to either fill in empty spaces in an image or add objects within an image, take things out. It's kind of weird. I can't describe it any other way. But I don't know why this just was coming up this week. I think it was in Petapixel and then some other story that people are using it to restore pictures with generative fill.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, that is brilliant. I don't know why it's only coming up now. Maybe someone thought about it and it's just surfacing coming up now. But restoring photographs using generative fill seems to make it makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. Because Have you done any photo restoration in Photoshop?
Oh, years and years ago, but nothing really it'd be color correction mostly and sharpening.
Yeah.
Done a fair amount of that, but not too much beyond that.
Yeah, I was doing it. I was actually doing it for some stock photographers once. They hired me as sort of like their tech person, and every now and then I had to do essentially what would have been generative fill would have helped me out a lot. But then in that case, they might not have hired me because they would have done it themselves. It would have been a little secret I would have kept to myself. Now I'm doing this kind of stuff, but there would be things like they had a photograph of one of those smoke shop Indians, and it was the wood was split where through the face, and it was, if you know how to do restoration, it's kind of, I don't want to say kind of easy, but you get to know, like, basically you select the half that's split apart and then you create a new layer and you can join them together. It looks great, but it's a pain in the butt. And I was like, what would have happened if I had generative fill to just sort of fill that in? So I have this image that I want to restore. It's a public domain image from my neighborhood. I might have mentioned this in the show before. That was taken from, I guess, from a blimp or a kite in my neighborhood in either 1912 or 1907. I don't remember off the top of my head. And it's a panoramic of my neighborhood. Not exactly my neighborhood. It's the older neighborhood near the subway, which is called Ditmas Park. It wasn't Ditmas Park back then.
But it's all these east of you, right?
It's east of me, yes. Yeah. And there are all these old houses. They film a lot of movies there, and because it looks like old neighborhoods. But the houses are from the turn of the 20th century, late 19th century houses, Victorian houses. Anyway, it's this giant image, very high scan, but it's been broken in half. There's a seam down the middle. But there's a chunk of a house that's missing on the bottom right. I want to restore this image and even maybe print it out because it's a really beautiful shot. And I was having so much trouble restoring that like missing chunk on the bottom right where there's supposed to be a house. And I was like, maybe I was taking one of the other houses and copying it there. And I just couldn't quite get the perspective right. And I just dropped in this generative fill. I circled it and I was like, go ahead. And I did like maybe 2 or 3 iterations of it, and every time you do an iteration, it gives you 3 choices.
Right.
And like through one of those,
like Midjourney, Midjourney does that.
Yeah, but you choose which one you want, and what's really cool is it does it on a layer, so it's not a permanent thing.
Right.
You can always, And I did it, and I was like, I found like a house, and it followed the road thing, and it made a house that looked, it's really in the corner, and it's kind of out of focusy, so it's not a big deal, but it's just something to fill it in, so it doesn't look like it's this hole. It did it perfectly. And I was like, wow, this is genius. And I just started going around instead of spotting things. So just circling the sky. The part of the sky was, it looked like the print had been, this was a scan from a print. So it looked like the print had been damaged or didn't get fixed enough. So the sky was kind of not cloudy, but it looked kind of stained. And I was just circling the stains, and rather than doing, what is it? Healing or whatever.
Cloning out.
Forget cloning. I was like, the hell with cloning. Generative fill, boom, done. And you leave some of it in and some of the stuff out, and it was pretty amazing. And so I don't know, for some reason to me that seems like one of the best uses of that technology. I mean, I know people want to add edges to their pictures and stuff like that, and I guess there's some value to that in some way. I still feel weird about it, like adding something that to my own picture that wasn't there.
Right.
Just doesn't, I don't know, feels weird. But I mean, another use I saw of it, someone was doing wedding pictures of a couple, like pre-wedding in some town in, I think, Scotland. And there were these people in the background, and they used generative fill to get rid of the people in the background. So it looked like an empty street. I thought that was a really good use of it too. Yeah. Because, and it filled it in nicely. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that people probably know about this stuff already, but I think to me seeing that kind of technology for this use just, I don't know, seems to make more sense. And I was like, oh, now I feel good about it. So anyway, that was I just wanted to mention those things because it's on my mind, and especially the photo walk too. But so cool. Anyway, what do we want to talk about? It was like, should I go through my experiences of teaching?
So we're talking about teaching.
Well, ask me a question.
I had my first. I'll start from my end because I don't have much.
Start from your end. Yeah.
So actually, when I was in my 20s, I did a 6-week course on photography for the city at the Parks and Recreation Department. I don't think I ever told you this.
No, you didn't. No.
I did that, and I did it from an art perspective, like, form, texture, tone, whatever, color, different aspects of photography and how it relates to art and that sort of thing, and with a context of not so much how to take better pictures, but more of an appreciation of photography, so you could do this discovery on your own later. Mm-hmm. That seems to be a theme with me. I think I can't tell you what to do in this situation or that situation, but I'd like to give you little keys to press or dials to turn that will help you with your own vision of things. Mm-hmm. So I did that. I found it really rewarding, but I wasn't invited back. So who knows? Maybe they just the reviews that we got back, because I got to see the surveys and they were fine.
It was 6 weeks, like once a week, or
once a week. So there was a 2-hour session, 6 consecutive weeks.
Okay,
and it was pretty well attended. I think it was 12 people.
Did you have to be invited after showing a portfolio, or you were just sign up for it? How did you get? No,
it's friend of a friend. So friends in the art department at the university I was working at the time. Mm. And then it was like, oh, we'd like to do a photography course. Would you like to try it? There's no risk. I'm paid minimum wage. I don't care, but I'm getting some fun out of this by showing people off my passion and so on. So there was that. That was kind of my earliest experience with trying to teach people, and I learned a lot, like how to speak and how to kind of manage student expectations, sort of. And then I did this talk at the camera store here a couple of weeks ago, right? We had talked about it on the show about how to make a photo book, and I found it really rewarding, and I thought that the crowd really got something out of it. And so I've been kind of thinking about this on what I could do, what we could do to be able to I look at it as kind of transmitting our passion of photography, or in my case, this more recently photo books, to people, and how we could help people discover their own passion, or at the very least be able to give them some tools to create better photographs in a way that isn't just getting more likes or thumbs up or whatever. So anyway, so that's sort of all I had to say about it. I don't really have much.
That can't be all you have to say about it, because this, between your 20s and now, did you ever do any kind of public speaking or speaking about photography, or is it that long of a gap?
No, that was a gap. Yeah.
Really?
Well, I got married and we had kids, and there was a 20-year gap where I didn't do any photography really, other than holiday snaps and pictures of the kids.
But you were also collecting books back then too, though, still, right?
Yeah, books and magazines.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned this thing in your 20s, because the first thing that came to my mind as well was when I worked at the stock agents at the Image Bank, and I ended up moving into the editing department. So I was working there full time, and we had a lot of interaction with photographers, and we did, was it once a year, had a sort of a gathering of photographers, like a, I don't know, what would you call it, like a conference or something like that. And it would be for a week or X amount of days, and we would have meetings about trends and whatnot. And I'm usually not a very, I at least thought I was never a public speaker or something like that, but it was something I'm very passionate about, was the photography, or in that case back then it was stock photography. It was very easy for me to get up and talk to people, photographers, about stuff because I really felt like I knew what I was talking about. So once I got up and explained things about, you know, a market or a style of photography that was coming into fashion or something like that, it was very easy for me to do that. I think that sort of carries over. I mean, I still think of myself as a shy person. I don't know why. Elizabeth used to say, "You pick up, you know, conversations with people just off the streets," and like that's
true. I saw you working your magic in Washington Square Park, and that
with the guy,
older gentleman that wanted his picture taken too along Central Park too. No, you're all right. You can speak in public, but I just wanted to say that when I gave the talk at the camera store, I had a lot of the same feelings, and I think the feeling I had was this is a safe place to share all this. I can share all my nerdiness and my my passion that might be misunderstood by somebody else. Here, I can say, you know, you're shooting street. Well, you know how difficult that can be, and everyone is like, "Hell yeah, no!" And you know, they're kind of they're with you, and that makes a big difference.
When having the right audience, it certainly makes a difference. And in my case with the Image Bank, I had a lot of photographers who wanted to hear what I was saying, or it wasn't just me talking. We had a whole bunch of people talking, but if we were doing a panel or something like that, because they wanted to make more money, or they wanted to understand what the markets were. So they got an audience. I don't want to make this a complaint fest. I have a possibility of going into plans. So you can rein me in if I go too far, but I've been teaching lately, you know this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And part of the there's something that's going on. There's a bit of a disconnect with the people who are signing up for the classes and then what I'm teaching. And so what ends up happening is, I just had this week, is there's different levels of interest in the classes I take or I teach. Now the 3 classes I teach are, and they're one-off classes too. They're not like a 6-week course or even a double.
Right. They're just hour sessions or 3 hours.
Yeah, 3 hours or 2 hours.
Okay.
One's mobile phone photography, right? Which is fine. Actually, I just did one this week, which was on Zoom, which is actually the best way to teach that. And there is an interest in that, but I understand what it is. It's like people want to learn how to use their phones because they're carrying around all the time and they want to take better pictures. And that's an easy one, right? And then there's the introduction to digital photography, which is kind of the same thing, but it's like, you know, a little bit more involved with the exposure triangle.
F-stops and
as much as I can in 3 hours, right? And I try to spend some time. There's no going out and shooting in any of those 2 classes because there just isn't enough time, and they wouldn't really gain anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I get it. There's the 2 people want to learn stuff. And so I've actually noticed with those 2 classes, there's more of an involvement because I think people they want this information. And so I think the digital photography class, the introduction, those are the ones I have like some of the best times in. In fact, I got one coming up Wednesday, so a couple days from now, which is in the afternoon. But that's going to be on Zoom. That's not as interesting. It's better in person. But anyway, then there's the street photography class, and there's where the disconnect comes in. There's a whole different mindset of people who are coming in there because I think street photography is a very nebulous term for people who are beginners or just wanting to get in photography. And, you know, you get all sorts of people who come in saying, oh, you know, I want to learn, you know, why are you here in street photography? Well, you know, I'm a fashion photographer and I'm trying to do this. And I go, but okay, that's great. Why street photography? Like, what brings you here? And that's a constant theme in that class. And, you know, I've got a passion for street photography, you know, and I talk about it, and I've got, every now and then I'll bring books with me. I don't really have enough time to like hand out books. I'm also not a big fan of like handing my book out to everybody and have them.
Right.
I got to get some extra copies of these things so I can hand them out and let them thumb through it and make a mess. So I don't like people with ketchup fingers. Touching my books. I'm not saying people have ketchup fingers, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I worked on a class which has a bit of this, you know, street photography history. I don't know if I mentioned, I'm sure I mentioned it to you, but I'm showing your pictures as some of examples, some of the stuff that you've done.
That's very kind of you. You got like, I get my own slide with my
You get your
one
own
of
slide
my
with your own
Stampede
name.
Heads pictures with my name on it. It's fantastic.
you get 5 pictures. I rotate photographers a lot. I mean, some I don't, but sometimes I rotate stuff out just to spice it up a little bit. But yeah, you get a little highlighted, especially that picture of like the head on the one side and the where all your edges are taken up and you have the wires going across. Was that taking it?
I just posted that as a memory. That was taken during the Stampede.
Yeah.
So that was a memory from, what was it, 5 years ago this week? It was posted in public at the camera store. That picture was hanging up on the wall.
That was the one that was hanging up. Yeah.
That was the one that was hanging up. Yeah.
Yeah. That's my favorite shots of yours, actually. So anyway, I get into this thing and I've got a role and I've got an idea for it. And, my thought process is that, especially with street photography, or like, I think with any kind of photography, is I want to get their eyes oriented and into what we're going to talk about. And so, like, going out and suddenly like talking to them for 20 minutes about street photography and saying going out and photographing for 2 hours to me is totally pointless, because what are you going to do in 2 hours? Right? You're going to take where are you going to apply your skills? It's like, I want you to learn stuff, because you get me for a few hours and you're not going to have me anymore. Like, we're not doing a 2-parter class. If we were doing a 2-parter class, then it would be different, but I only got 3 hours. And so there's a bit of me talking and showing history and stuff like that. And I think I'm barking up the wrong tree with this. And it's a little I don't know. I say demoralizing is maybe a little too strong of a word, but it's in that department.
Disappointing.
Disappointing. Every now and then, there'll be a photographer or someone who wants to learn, more about street photography. And I get it. That's great. It's not saying it's everybody, but generally it's not as strong as maybe the other classes. I think people come in, and maybe it's because street photography is a term that people don't quite know, or how do you define it? In fact, I started off the class saying, what is street photography? Like, what is it? Where are we getting it from? What does it mean? And I asked people to ask, answer that question. But anyway, I come into the class with a lot of passion about that, and I have to maintain that, and I do, like throughout the whole class. Even when sometimes I'll have a student who's, every now and then you'll have someone who's a bit of a challenge, let's just say, asking questions and whatever. We all know that challenge and thing, but I always approach this with as much energy as I can. And I do like speaking in front of people, and I do, especially about something that I know about and that I'm passionate about. But when it's the wrong audience, it's not the right word. It's when it's it's not reciprocated.
Right.
From the energies, it's a real struggle. So when you talk about sharing your passion, like how can we do that? Like how can I convert people who are maybe not so sure about where they're at or what they're doing or why they're in this class or whatever? Like, how do you convert them to, I don't know, I want to say thinking the way you're thinking or thinking the way I'm thinking, but I mean, they're there for a reason, right? They're spending their time, maybe they paid a few bucks to get into the class, but they showed up. And so there's some desire for that. And one of the things I need to sort of talk about with the people who are running the class is that, like, how to approach this in the future. Do I need to, and this is again the wrong word, dumb down the class is not the right phrase, but adjust
it for the whatever you want to call it, the experience level and the expectations of the because I think of the surveys that were handed out after my talk at the camera store, and I thought it was kind of telling. There were one or two where they just kind of misunderstood. It's like they misunderstood what the point of the talk was. They thought maybe it should be about photography. And we were pretty clear that the name was How to Make a Photo Book.
About photography and what respect? Like how to
about shooting and composition, and here's how I did this. here's how I created this picture sort of thing. So, and I don't know what you can do about those folks.
There's, I think always who misread it or just don't understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think somehow or other we have to figure out if it's marketing research or whatever the crazy word is of what are the actual expectations of the person that are showing up at that class. If you could find a way to just grab understand what their expectations are and run with it in whatever level they are. And I don't know, have you found the experience level or interest varies from class to class, or it's to say you have the same kind of quote unquote disappointments?
I would say it varies, but it's starting to increasingly become a little bit more disappointing. If that's, I mean, again, it could be seasonal.
Yeah.
It could be the time of day that the class is run. If it's in the middle of the day, am I going to, get an audience of people who are, freelancers who don't work 9-to-5 jobs.
Right.
I don't know that yet. It's still an open question. But, when I was saying about, I don't know if I come up with a different name than dumbing down the class. I'm just going to say it because it's what I'm thinking.
Adapt
the class. Even if I adapt the class, I don't necessarily see that would be a solution, because it might end up being the same. I'm reducing the amount of the expectation of the class, but I still might have an audience or students who are still in the same boat with in terms of their expectations or their disknowledge. That's not even a right word, but like not knowing what street photography is. Right. So as much as I drop it down and it come down, it still might be, not at the level, or we might be passing each other no matter what. So like, why bother reducing, why would I bother doing that? Because they're still going to miss the boat one way or the other. Right. It's just going to miss it in a different direction. Right? And we're not going to be talking about the history of photography. I'm going to be talking about, what else would I talk about in street photography? I don't know what to talk about. I don't know how to change that. I don't know how to change the expectations in it. So like when you were saying, there might be always somebody or people in the class who are going to misread or misunderstand what they're coming in for, right? No matter what you do to change it, or no matter what the marketing is to change it or whatever. But how can you still win them over, right? Okay, so they came in about wanting to learn about photography. You're teaching about making a photo book. How can you still say, well, okay, you came in with this, but you're going to leave with excitement and energy regardless, right?
Right.
Like, how can you take that? And I don't know what the answer is to that. I don't know what how you can manage that, and whether it's just, changing or thinking about how, like, that you might have that kind of audience, and how to adjust your talk or presentation, or is it, I don't know what to do. I don't know what you would do in your case.
Go back to my experience. It was marketed really well, and it was described. I think it was pretty well described in the web materials that went out, or the web copy, whatever you want to call it, the marketing that went out on what it was. And then when I started my talk, I told sort of like the introduction to a book itself, where you tell people what this course is and what it isn't. And I'm just wondering, when I said we're not going to be talking very much about actual photographs, but how to sort them and whatever to put in the book. And I'm wondering if that person who did that survey was immediately disappointed by that aspect because, and just kind of hung on to that, and then kind of tuned out when we started talking about the book. It's a worthy question. Like, I would want to go to a street photo, but then I understand what street photography is. I would love to sit in on a session, or go out with one of the known street photographers walking up and down the streets of Manhattan. I would, or Brooklyn, wherever. Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting point. It just sounds like the expectations don't line up with to me anyway, with what you're offering.
Possibly, what, and again, why would, anyway, would somebody want to come to the class if they didn't know what street photography is? Like, are they thinking they're going to learn this? Or are they just seeing the word photography, ignoring the word street? But anyway, what just popped in my mind as you were talking, because you were talking about your 20s and you were teaching a class somewhere in my past, and I can't remember exactly when. I think it might have been after I graduated college, possibly. But I took a photojournalism class with this guy, Mel Rosenthal. You ever hear of him?
No, doesn't ring a bell.
New York photographer. I think he's no longer with us. And it was photojournalism, and I thought that was something I wanted to do. Right.
I did for a while too.
Yeah. And I actually, what is it? Was it when you were young too? You
yeah.
wanted to be like a hot shot, Yeah.
The idea of traveling and creating these things that both have meaning, or photos that have meaning and are aesthetic. I didn't think of it in those terms. It was just kind of this subconscious feeling that you were creating something that had some real value for people in a spectral way, in a different in different ways.
Yeah. And I think, it's funny because I had certain ideas about what it meant. And then when I was in the class, I found out that it was different than what I expected. And I didn't like it. It wasn't anything about the way he was teaching. It has nothing to do with him. He's a well-respected photojournalist in New York City. And I didn't know that then. I don't think his name wasn't like on my radar as somebody who was in this business, but I missed a lot of people back then anyway. I was not a name person. But as time went on, I was like, oh, Mel Rosenthal. I was like, oh yeah, he was just and when I took that class, and it wasn't for credits or anything like that. It was just like, like you said, like a 6-week class once a week or something like that, or maybe longer. It might have been 12 weeks. It was a long time. I ended up not, like, this wasn't what I was expecting. It wasn't what I thought, and maybe it was just a different style of photojournalism. I just had some sort of idea in my head about what that meant to be, and it wasn't what I thought it was. And and so I'm wondering if that's some of the same things that the people who are coming to see us are also managing, and whether or not there's anything that can be done about that, whether it should be done, or that's just the way things are. And how does this apply to other photographers? I mean, like, most people don't teach, but I think I really enjoy teaching. I really like sharing my experiences of what I do and trying to express that to other people. Like, say, look, you can do this kind of stuff as well. And so I think this would come up a lot for a lot of people. It's a good opportunity, whether it's teaching your group of people or you're showing one or two people something that you're trying to you want to share with them. So I think it's a challenge that we all have to sort of figure it out, and whether or not there's a solution, I don't know. It's just a frustrating part of this sometimes, that, like, maybe just not everybody cares about this stuff.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think it's that. I think the audience doesn't. It seems to me the audience doesn't understand for one reason or another, and I don't know what it is.
Do you think it's because photography has changed in terms of how we're now approaching it?
Yeah, I think that maybe people aren't so interested in the history
or the technology, or
no, I don't think. Well, people that just don't understand the technology. All they know is, I'm just talking general people off the street who don't follow photography, in a creative, or how do I want to put it, in a technical way.
Yeah. But everybody's a photographer now.
Everyone's a photographer, but they may not value, and that's a point. They may not value the history. Because when I was in my talk, I held up Robert Frank's The Americans and said, "How many of you know Robert Frank?" Well, maybe 3 people knew who Robert Frank was.
You said you had about 50 people.
50
there, right?
people, yeah. So the people aren't, and I showed, I opened the books up of the books that directly were influenced or that I was thinking of when Mark and I were working on the book, and different aspects like the cover and all that kind of stuff was kind of roughly based on an old zone system book that I had that had this great patina on it. So I knew I wanted it to live in that kind of age in that sort of way. And Robert Frank's The Americans, which is a linear kind of photographic narrative, which is what Mark and I were doing. And it was just I was trying to show people how you could bring things together in order to do this creative thing of making a photo book, and what options you have in front of you.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
When you asked,
give me a long question too. I have time.
When you asked the audience how many people have seen this book, and only a few people did, how did that make you feel at that moment? Did you have an experience?
I had to pivot. I had to pivot and talk a little bit about what The Americans is.
Okay. Well, that was a practical thing, but I'm just wondering if, see, for me, it happens in my class, right? Okay, I don't expect them to know Robert Frank just because of the class and like that. But, I talk about Vivian Maier, right? And the story of her sort of made the rounds relatively recently.
And that's got a lot of people started into their understanding or what they think street photography is.
And I'll get people who nod oh yeah, I know. But more often than not, all the names that I show of all the photographers, nobody knows anybody. And when I hear, especially Vivian Maier, I was like, no, don't know about that. And my heart sinks a little bit. I mean, I bounce back because I got a presentation, but there's a little part of me that just sort of, and I was wondering if you
I wasn't crestfallen at all. No, I was just like, then I'm going to have to explain what these books are individually. If nobody knows Robert Frank, they're not going to know the other one. So I'm going to go through and indicate what was it about the way the pictures were laid out and what the subject matter was. Robert Frank's book is not a travelogue, even though he does go across the country. It is not holiday snaps. It is not all these things. It's about the grit and the kind of a feeling about, life and race and danger and space and all sort. You have a feeling about what it's like to be in the United States after you go through that book. And the one thing is what it was like in 1960 or 1959. That's what it was like in America. But how much of that tone that you get from all those amazing pictures still resonates today, and a lot. The story, it's the same story, really.
Yeah. Well, actually, do you get people? So they don't know Robert Frank, but do they get? Was there nods on what you were talking about?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So
and it's just, so that's it.
So there's that. So there's at least that.
So I would say in the Robert Frank book, I said, you'll go through this. You may not understand all the pictures. You may not like all the pictures. I don't like all the pictures. It's sort of I don't know exactly what he's trying to say here, but I'm getting a tone out of this picture. I'm getting a feeling out of this picture. So somehow or other, he's getting to me in that way.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the level I was at. So after you go through the book, the Americans, you'll have a feeling about what it's like to be in the USA. With Mark and my book, you get a feeling about what it's like to go to a small town rodeo. That's all we wanted. We wanted an impression. Right? So that was so now we're thinking, we're not just talking about lining pictures up to put in a sequence. We're talking about something bigger, what the photo book is. and that it's an artwork and a discipline to create different from photography. It's a kind of a craft that uses photography as the raw material. Then you could see the light bulbs go off in the people in the crowd.
Okay, it's interesting that you're saying that, because the what's popping in my mind now, as in terms of, like, say, a retooling, is perhaps approaching it for me with my audience is not like, oh, here's this photographer, here's this photographer, here's this photographer, but because I break them up, right? You know, here's Vivian Meyer, here's you, here's, you know, Jamal Shabazz, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just wondering if what it would be like for me to re-edit that slideshow and break those pictures up and put them into a sequence.
Yeah, because who's going to complain?
Who's going to complain? And, well, yeah, who'd complain? And B, like, maybe the photographer doesn't matter. I mean, I could certainly put captions underneath each image as to who it is, but, like, it wouldn't matter to then approach it from, oh, this is what this photographer did, this is what this photographer did. Like, here's a sequence of images, and build up towards something, and maybe even tell a story, because maybe that's what people want. Like, rather than to be, and I'm sure that I'm hitting this as I'm thinking about it now. They don't want to be talked to. They want to have a story.
And also too, I think what I showed some of Mark's pictures, his amazing portraits from his 100 Strangers project. And I love the idea of place, right? Time and place and time travel and everything, right? So I would say, this picture was just taken a few blocks away from here. You know, those, your pictures, right? Your zine that I just got, that just arrived today, which is fantastic, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you
for creating it. You could just say, this picture was just taken a couple of blocks away. Imagine if you could do that. Like, I'm just trying to motivate people. And that's what I think I was trying to do.
And it seemed like yours was a success, because you had very few, even your criticisms weren't that bad, like the ones that were. So
they didn't offend me, or like there was one good criticism of me showing
the
waste
of time.
Yeah, there was no waste of time.
No.
Well, the waste of time people, that they probably wouldn't have filled out a survey anyway. But you know, why didn't I show pictures from the books instead of holding books open to show? You know, that's valid, right?
Oh, you mean rather than, like, see show on the screen?
On the screen, right?
Yeah. That's a
practical stuff. Like, how would I know? Then I can. It would be good from a time perspective too. Then I can tighten things up, because I'm not running over to grab a book as an example. I'd have it in my PowerPoint.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was thinking, like, were you all, because you were telling a story about the process, not only the process of making your book, but the story of you photographing, you and Mark, at this event.
Well, not too much about the actual, not too much, but nothing technical about the actual shooting, other than number of frames we shot. We uploaded to my computer, to my own computer, just for
what about the adventure of being there, right? I mean, you tend to talk about that sometimes, right? The adventure of being at the rodeo.
Yeah, well, I had one slide that just profiled, had an aerial shot of the Stampede grounds. You know, when they were, it was not the year that it was not the 100th anniversary. It wasn't nearly as many people there in that picture, but just what it is, and as a cultural event in Alberta and Western Canada, I think everyone should give this a try, a small town rodeo. That it's a very unique Western North American cultural event. And if you're from the city or something and you don't know about this, and you've got to drive on gravel for a few miles before you get to the Stampede grounds. It's a very homey, and their tagline is up close and personal. I mean, you can stand right by the fence. You're just inches or feet away from the rough stock. You know, you can smell the animals. Like, it's very immersive. Yeah. And so what we're trying to do with the book was kind of transmit some of that. So it's not just like sport pictures you would see in a rodeo magazine or on television. It would be those little moments where you're sitting kind of looking over and you start to stare and you see these little moments. That's sort of what.
And you were being
I
able
imagine.
to transmit that too about the other books that you were showing too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, yeah. So okay, so there was a carryover from what you're doing and Robert Frank and whoever books you're showing. That's part of the whole process, and so that keeps them engaged. I'm thinking this out loud now for the first time, and so I'm just cool. You're sort of weaving a story no matter what, and
I'm trying to put. I think I was trying to put the. Not just a motivation, but if I were you, you've got your pictures, you've got those holiday snaps or whatever. Now you arm them with the idea of what kind of book do you want to do? And I didn't go much into the different kinds, just to say what they were. Shooting for a book or shooting from your catalog, or not shooting, compiling from your catalog, right? The different, if you're shooting for a book, for a project, you might think a little differently about the way you shoot than if you're just trying to grab from. And you and I are working on a project together too, and it's sort of like, well, we're finding all of these images that really don't have much of a relationship to each other. Were never shot with the idea of them being grouped together at all, and going through the sequencing that way,
Yeah. Well, okay. This is all very good for me to think about too, because for me, I don't want to give up on doing this class, and I do want to engage people and get them excited, and not having to dumb down the class, but having to alter it in such a way that I can maybe take some of the hints from what you were doing, but apply it to what I'm trying to do with people who are maybe, not as passionate about it or don't even know what street photography is, but there's the opportunity for me to I would say mold them or get them to look at, oh, that's what this is, like some sort of discovery or something like that. But I think it's something that a lot of us photographers will have to do at some point, it's worthwhile to consider how to approach the things that we're passionate about and express them to people who maybe are not initially so passionate about it or who want to learn about it.
Yeah. Also, too, I think, and I did it, I think, a couple of times with maybe in that old Parks and Rec course that I did, kind of an impassioned narration of a photograph. Like it'd be so much easier to do it now than it was then.
Like what? Explain that.
Well, like, let's imagine a picture of the sun raking across city street. There's glass and steel, or whatever you want to call it, aluminum building on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And there are these diagonal shadows that go into a back alley, and then a man walking across in full stride, lit by the blazing sun when everything in the back alley is black behind him. And you're saying, okay, here, look what's going on here. And then you do this kind of like, yeah, this guy's by himself. What does that do? Well, the photographer got it so he was in full stride, so he looks like he's powerful, but he's tiny in this blackness of this back alley behind him. And you see these diagonal slashes of light and shadow going across, and you're just giving like this passionate description of it. And sort of like, this is something you can do. We've got, where we are, we've got back alleys. We've got sunny, like it's whatever it is. It's noon now or 2 p.m. We go out, and if it's cloudy, then you have something else.
Is this an imagined photograph that you're talking about, or something that you're actually?
It's an imagined one, but I've done.
Okay, that's
like
interesting.
With the pictures of my my tulips from the zoo that were on that Kodachrome 25. I showed those,
and
you see the bright color and how I don't have it in the middle of the frame. And then when I took this picture, it's off to the side, and you can see this lush greenery and looks like fern down below. And like you're trying to, it's not a passive experience of having, it's not, what is it that the technologists call it? They have it a sit back or a lean forward. I don't know what it's something that just happens to you or something that you have to participate in, you know. Watching TV is lean back. Playing a video game is lean forward. Or, I don't know, whatever the hell it is. But just giving these like passionate descriptions of images and hoping it'll catch. And I think you do. I think you get people lit up like, oh, we're not just looking at a dumb image. We're extracting something from it and giving us ideas for what we can do when we're actually out shooting. And then you've got this elevated feeling, as you know, if you're getting to send the people out to do their photography.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at this. This is actually good that I'm talking to you about this here on the show.
On the show,
yeah. Hopefully, it will help other people as well. Anybody who's doing this kind of stuff. But I'm about to sort of reevaluate this class a little bit, and you know, I didn't want to say that there's nothing wrong with it, you know, but I think it does have to be retooled, and I think it has to be remarketed as well. I think there's something on both sides in order to get a proper experience. And it's not for me. Like, I don't, you know, if they want, you know, a certain way that the class should be done, and I want to work for them, maybe that's what I have to do. But I think there's room for, you know, coming up with sort of some of the ideas you were just talking about right now, incorporating into what I'm already doing, and then market it in such a way that even if people are coming in who don't know street photography, they can maybe come out of it saying, oh, this is what it is and this is what I can do. And so I need to sort of craft an email this week talking about this. And so this is going to help a lot. So anyway,
just making stuff up, buddy.
You're making, if this is you making stuff up, then you know, it'd be really interesting when you start thinking of things and you're not making it up. So, yeah, I think I've got my job. I've got my homework. So thank you.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've, you know, I want to say beat a dead horse. We didn't beat a dead horse, but we're at our limit. We're at our time.
Okay, cool.
We've actually been doing just over an hour these days. We've gotten really good at keeping it to an hour. So anyway, I want to hold it to, I want to keep to that schedule. So we're doing good. Anyway, thanks.
Cool.
Thanks for joining me. Where can we find you in the world?
On social media, you can find me.
Social media. That thing. Yes.
Their socials. On Vero and Twitter, you can find me at wrosinphoto. On Instagram, you can find me at Ward Rosin Fine Art. On Facebook, you can find me at Ward Rosin Photo. That's WARDROSIN Photo. I have a website that I'm not really selling anything except the odd fine print. It's at rosin.ca. And I have this little business that I sell lenses and lens adapters for Sony E-mount and Fuji X-mount, and that is at Ornis Photo, ORNIS.photo, and that unofficial sponsor.
Unofficial sponsor.
Our unofficial sponsor.
We can't ever say it in sync. We have to say it.
I can never get through that without stammering. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I'm nervous.
All right.
And Antonio, where can we find you, my friend?
Yeah, on Vero, Twitter, and Flickr, it's at AM Rosario. That's also my website. It's amrosario.com. Facebook, yes, I am a Facebook person. Rosario Photo on Facebook. Our website is streetshots.photography. And we also have a Facebook page. I don't really do a lot on our Facebook page, but if you want to chat with us there, Street Shots Podcast on Facebook. And we've recently started a Substack newsletter. Actually, I'm a little backlogged in sending one out, but join us, subscribe to us, please. It's free, streetshots.substack.com. We've actually gotten a lot of subscribers.
And I saw that, and I got the app on my phone, and it's pretty good. I get notifications when there's new content.
Yeah. There's actually a lot of photographers doing stuff on Substack. I'm following a lot. So, yeah, follow us there. If you want to drop us a voicemail, you can do so at speakpipe.com/streetshots. These will all be in the show notes too. And if you want to support the show also by buying us a coffee, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Antonio Rosario. So that also helps support the show. So anyway, we got hopefully guests for our next episode, if all works out well. So sometime in September, our next show, we'll hopefully have some photographers on, if that goes well. And so looking forward to that.
Yes, sir.
No spoilers. So
no spoilers.
All right. Anyway, Ward, thanks for spending the night with me again.
Yeah, no problem.
I appreciate
it's my pleasure.
it. So, and to everybody and all, have a great week, time period, September, whenever you hear this episode. So, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. All right. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.